Dr. Hanan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Would you like to introduce yourself and then your talk of the day?
Yes, my name is Dr. Hanan Selim. I'm originally a pharmacist by profession, and I've been working in the healthcare industry for over 25 years now. And to make a long story short, I worked at the most prestigious hospitals in Manhattan. And I've come to a point where actually life turned around and I became the patient. And I'm actually a chemopharmacist, clinical pharmacist. So I was doing chemotherapy for my cancer patients. And at one point in my life, I became the patient. I went into what I knew best, the School of Thought of Medicine. And unfortunately, it didn't help as much as I was, thinking the protocols, the exact protocols. And then I found myself on this new journey of trying to find out what is the root cause behind any of these global illnesses and diseases that we're all being affected by. Whether it be communicable or non-communicable diseases. Yeah, so my topic today is how do we master the emotional brain to peak performance, even during times of change? So I want to talk about 3 simple practical ways that we could do that, and I call them my 3 Bs. And I will speak about where I got these 3 Bs, because at the end of the day, I am a scientist, and science and research and numbers mean everything to me. So I would like to go into a little bit of that, describing where that came from and how effective it is and how it could help our audience today. So my 3 Bs are actually brain training, breathing, and body. And this all started, like I mentioned, back when I was actually trying to help my own patients in Manhattan. I worked at the prestigious hospital. So I would see my cancer patients who would be doing so well on the protocols we give them, of course, working with the best team in Manhattan. And unfortunately, these same patients would be doing so well, going into remission, but quite a few months later, they would come back out of remission with something like 6 months to a year to live. And then we would see that with our diabetes patients who would be doing well as well on the conventional protocols, come back with gangrene, needing amputation. And the same thing with obese patients. They would be doing so well, again, with their health, with the diet, with the exercise. But again, a few months later, coming back needing a ventilator because they couldn't breathe, because their obesity was so uncontrollable. So it was always in the back of my mind, why is this happening? We work with the best team, with the best doctors, with the best nurses, with the best protocols and the medicines and the research and the cutting edge stuff. Why is this happening? So to make a long story short, when tables turned around and I had the other side of the bed, quote unquote, where I became the patient, it kind of like came full storm ahead in front of me, where all that was in the back of my mind became front fold. And I decided to go on this journey and do that, which I was thinking of doing a long time back for my own patients. And that was to find what is called the root cause. Now, unfortunately, these root causes are not things that conventional medicine can pick up on MRIs, lab works, radiology, x-rays, and so forth. They actually silently accumulate, if you will, and it's actually based on the science called epigenetics. So basically what epigenetics says is that it's not your DNA that predisposes you to disease. It's actually your environment that you surround yourself with physically and psychologically. So needless to say, based on that, I went on, did my research, 17 years of research, and I decided that, okay, what is it that is not showing up on our lab work or x-rays or all these magnificent tools that we're using in conventional side? And this is where where it became like a system that people can implement. Now, I'm not saying it replaces conventional protocols, okay? So I'm not saying to stop your chemo or your diabetes medicine or your heart medication and so on. I'm just suggesting that while you're doing that, why don't we look for that which has caused it in the first place, help relieve that, that is going to not needing you to go from 1 milligrams of a medication to 2 or 3. Yeah. So this is pretty much what it kind of boils down to. As you see here, there's doctors in scrubs, and the water that is represented here is actually the diseases we've been talking about: diabetes, cancer, obesity, and so forth. And what's happening is we're taking so much energy and time and effort trying to clean up the symptoms, what is the water that's represented on the floor, when we just need to look up and look at where the root cause is coming from, and that is the faucet. And basically what we're trying to mention here through this research is that just turn off the faucet, turn off that which is causing the health havoc in the first place. And it's based on this simple idea, or this simple methodology, and that is the mind-brain-organ connection. So if we go back to the root cause, which might be happening in the mind, there's a story, there's a misunderstanding somehow from, for example, childhood. I mean, it's more technical than that, because there's phases, there's stages and things of the sort. But if we go back and we just create that alignment, that harmony between the mind, brain, and organ, you relieve many, many things in a holistic way. As you see here, you could actually relieve the emotions or the beliefs that started the energy in motion, which is emotion, that created the havoc or the marching orders, if you will, from the brain that's now given the symptoms in the organ. It turns out that this mind-brain-organ connection is actually a program that already exists in each and every one of us. And there's some disarray, disharmony somewhere in that connection. And we just need to go in, find where that gap is, and fill it. So basically, as the research shows here, is that, yes, if we relieve stress, anxiety, and depression, that might be the root cause, but it's actually 15% of the equation. 10% is nutrition, sleep is another 10%, and activity, exercise is only 9%. If you combine all of these, the anxiety relief from nutrition, sleep, and activity, that doesn't make the full bulk. What actually is causing the havoc, like I mentioned earlier, when we first started the webinar, is that the 56% of the cause is what we call chronic biodisruption. So there's something in the environment that I mentioned that's based on the epigenetics that's happening silently, that's compounding and causing you these diseases. So again, finding the root cause, and we actually discovered that there's actually a process called as GSS formula that actually takes simply 7 minutes, a simple questionnaire that you could go and find the root cause and then be able to work on that alongside your protocols. And again, the entire system, again, is a natural holistic approach that is a 6-step process that we call the 6 R's. So a little bit about myself. I mentioned I am a PhD in clinical pharmacy. I've been working in this healthcare field for over 25 years. I built several wellness businesses like health stores, nutrition stores, vitamin stores. Of course, I had my own pharmacy. And now I have this new system that we call Hilology that is actually a holistic approach. So like I mentioned earlier, that we were dealing with these patients and looking and finding these yo-yo results just by addressing nutrition alone or exercise alone, the things that we mentioned earlier, that is only a small part or percentage of the whole process. So what is this therapy or cutting edge therapy we're talking about today? It's actually based on 3 important factors that I like to call a start to finish practice or therapy. That's based on principles of psychology, neuroscience, of course, the brain connection, a little bit of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And of course, what's been missing in these alternative side is the tools that which we can measure on the patient's journey along the way, which we have apps and as well as a checklist to make sure that just like if you have diabetes, and you go to the doctor and you measure your sugar levels, you're making sure that your drug or your medication or your protocols are working. We have the same thing in this therapy, that we also measure the scores of the phases that you're going through until we get you to what we call the safe haven, where your body actually kicks in to heal itself. So I'm sure everybody's had the experience of some kind of cut or something on their hand, and we all know that we don't need to go run to a doctor, especially if it's a small cut. We just are sure that our innate resources will go to that cut, allow it to heal on its own. So let me talk to you today about the 3 B's. The first one is called brain training. And I would suggest everybody, if you have any pen and paper, really try this out. It really does work. It's based on neuroscience. We've seen the EEGs and different brain parts of the brain lighting up when we do this. And it's just basically, I mean, these things are very practical and can be implemented by anybody. And that's pretty much just counting from 100 to 1 backwards in the morning. So before reaching for your caffeine or your cup of coffee or something, just while you're sitting first thing in the morning in bed, just count 100 to 1 backwards. And I get a lot of people saying, well, do I count it backwards in my native language, a second language, or what is more efficient? And I say, well, when you first start with your native language, but if as soon as you're into 1 to 2 weeks, you try to use another language, might be a second language, that might not be effective, because that might not be efficient, I should say, because the more difficult you make it for your brain, the more oomph and what we call the healing chemicals or the anti-inflammatory chemicals that's going to be released in the brain to allow the body to heal itself. And again, we have something called the second B, which is breathing. And I call it the 669 breathing. A lot of people are familiar with yoga and meditation, but this one's quite interesting, because what we've seen is that when you take 6 breaths on the count of 6, hold on the count of 6, nourishing the body with the oxygen, and then release on the count of 9, that allows the body to take the nutrients and the healing, if you will, from the oxygen and releasing the carbon dioxide, or that which is negative in the body, including things like free radicals and so on. Okay. And the last one is body. And it's not about, a lot of people may think that body is taking care of exercise. Yes, of course, water, a nourishing of the body is very important. But when we're talking about fear, and when you get yourself into fear, you're releasing these cortisol inflammatory chemicals in your body. What you can do in when something to hold on to, or not to get yourself really deep into negative thinking, is that if, for example, I'm sitting right now and I'm having these negative fears or whatnot going on in my mind, if I simply stand up or go outside or go for that glass of water or go for a walk or something, what happens physically on the outside makes that switch or that shift that's going to happen on the inside as well. So what I have today for you guys is that I wanted to offer the audience a really special gift. I mean, I don't have the extended time, if you will. So everything that I've spoken about here is in the book, Second Chances. And I wanted to offer it to everyone today to take a free copy, read on the information. Because to be honest, a lot of people have gotten back to me and said, oh, wow, this is perfect for post-COVID, or the fear or this negative thinking or anxiety that causes really health havocs and those chronic biodisruptors that I spoke about that leads to, unfortunately, a lot of these global unfortunate diseases. Thank you.
Suggestions, and I guess that a lot of people got a great value. And I'm really want to comment here that it's not a second chance, maybe it's the last chance that you have. Because in COVID, living 1 year plus, in the home and having a lot of things around you which you were never used to. I mean, this much time you never spend with the family, and Now they came to know that that time was good when he was less at home, because more at home is not that good, you know. So you're really and tell me, like, as a suggestion to the people, there are so many programs on TV like walk in 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I mean, you can't go in COVID sometime lockdowns on the road for a walk, and you can't stop everything. So are they effective, like where you can have 30 minutes exercise like a walk indoor? Are they really useful, or is just like a stunt?
So actually, it's quite interesting because there was research that was done in the US with athletes. So they set up all the wires on their bodies and their mind and everything. And they measured the heart rate, the blood pressure and everything when they're actually running, for example, right? And then they had another group of people who are actually sitting, not moving, just imagining the paved way, running, feeling the steps or their feet going, touching the ground and the impact it's making and everything. Would you believe that the numbers were the same when there were people, where the athletes were actually running? The heart rate was the same, the blood pressure was the same, everything was the same, even though they didn't physically move. So that's why it's very important with brain training. You can simply do it. We don't have to set aside 20 minutes, 50 minutes for meditation. Just counting backwards, science has shown that it releases, this is what you're looking for, is to release these happy chemicals, healing chemicals. Because guess what? If you're focused on the positive, the mind does not do two negating factors. It will not be negative and positive at the same time. Just like the sun won't come out and the moon won't come out at the same time. The same thing with your mind. So from the start of the day in the morning, once your mind is focused on that which you can control, first of all, and stay positive, it's very difficult to go on that other pathway. That's why it gives you a lot of energy, a lot of focus, problem solving, and like we mentioned earlier, brain training to peak performance. And this is, I believe, alongside breathing. And there's a lot of Muslims, that it's actually in a hadith that shows that if you just move your body from its position, will also change the mindset, change the negative thinking into a different pathway.
Yeah, that's why they said that if you are in anger, so you walk or you sit or you drink water. So that is the hadith you may be referring to. So that's great. And what about those women who has 4 or 5 kids and they have offices, long hours, and their bosses are very stressful, and by maybe after the lunch, their energy levels goes really down, and they start fighting with the colleagues. And when they reach home, they have fight with the husband, and they have a bad day. So for them, what is the criteria? What is the best solution? Those who are listening, you would be free of cost advice for this kind of usual scenario that we encounter it.
Right. So actually, I actually had quite a few clients. We're in Dubai, right? That actually have 5, 6 kids. And they actually start the day all together as a family with the brain training, which is quite interesting. It brings the family closer together. They're all focused. They're all calmed down because it gives you that sense of responding rather than reacting. Because with mothers, when we become impatient, you're reacting, you're yelling, you're snapping at your kids or whatever, right? But when you respond, when you're in that calm, instead of reactive stage, you're able to teach something to the child, take the moment and be able to calm the home. And to mention this, it's actually been proven and shown scientifically that it actually just takes 3 seconds to go from negative to positive, or from anxious or stress to calm. And if you just this chance and window of opportunity, whether you're using brain training, whether you're using the breathing or just moving your body, you take back control in order to respond instead of react. And actually, there's been I forget the name of the person or the doctor. She even talks about power poses, if you will. So they even mentioned if you're going into a meeting and you're anxious or whatever, just take 5 minutes, head into a private meeting room or even the washroom and do one of those power poses to take back control, that you have the confidence and the energy. It's all mindset. It all begins with the mind. And I want to mention that if from diseases to health habits to work, career, performance, it all begins with the mind. And if you're able to take back control with your mind, I mean, you could go on so many research. Dr. Bruce Lipton and Dr. Joe Dispenza, many people that I stand on top of their shoulders that even have their own science and research. I did my for 17 years, and I came up with these simple, practical tools for everyone to use, because it doesn't take time or energy or effort.
So in conclusion, it means that anyone I see in anger, I should tell them to do some, movements, or maybe sit and take water, and it's expected that the brain power will work for them.
3 seconds, that's all you need. If you take back control, and these are hooks, these are save lines, these breathing and this brain training and this body movement is actually just for you to grab a line to get yourself out of that, which is going to lead to other things. And of course, when it goes to compound for a long time, this is where health havoc issues as well start.
I guess this is a very useful technique, and I'm going to use it tomorrow. And some of my colleagues, actually, I will advise them to do an exercise every 15 minutes. So they should not come in the high brain. That's great. Thank you very much for joining us. It's so lovely to have you. And I will request you again in another show to share more tips with our women community, because they really need it, and such kind of unusual healing techniques. Because generally, if we work 8 hours in office, and if I'm a woman, I have to handle the kid. I can't go to gym 1 hour cardio, and this, it's not physically possible. I mean, maybe it's not useful even, when you are really exhausted. So these kind of mental therapies, heliology, which you said that. Yeah, that's a unique word.
Science of self-healing. Yeah, it is a science. It is evidence-based. Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much for joining us. You can conclude your remarks for the day.
Thank you. I welcome, and I'm very honored and privileged to have this opportunity to join such an amazing panel of speakers today. I'm very happy that I was invited on such an inspiring conference, especially women, by women, for women. I really appreciate it. And I welcome everybody to join me in reading and making our peak performance at its best, and read the Second Chances at secondchances.me. And I hope it helps you guys as it helped me and my family as well. Thank you.